Hi, I'm Muggs McConnell from the South Okanagan Yoga Academy, and this is the Snippets of Yoga Philosophy. So today I wanted to talk about the 8 limbs of yoga. And thanks so much for feedback from many of you who are listening in on these snippets of yoga. First, I wanted to point out, if you make sure you start the video at the very beginning, I do have a plate that summarizes what we are talking about today. And so you can even pause the video and copy that plate to give you some notes about what we're talking on each one of the videos. The other thing is, when you're on the SOYA Yoga YouTube and you click on the playlist, you'll see a whole playlist for the Snippets of Yoga Philosophy. If you just scroll below the video, the description is also written there. So I'm giving you a few extra notes in case you miss some of the points. So that's feedback that I've been given, and I wanted to point out that the information is there for you, written down a little bit for you. So let's move into the 8 limbs of yoga. So many people think that yoga is asana, the yoga practices on your mat, and it is so much more than that. There are traditionally 8 limbs of yoga. Some schools of yoga have 9 or more, but 8 is the standard from Pantajali's Yoga Sutras, the Raja Yoga Sutras. So in my book, Letters from the Yoga Masters, I thought it might be easier if I just put a picture up of the book. On page 29, I do summarize these 8 limbs of yoga, and they're invaluable for just knowing that even if you're not on your mat, you're still practicing yoga in many of these ways. So the first 2 limbs are yamas and niyamas, and I won't go into a lot of detail about them here because they're a whole recording on themselves. But the yamas are ethical restrictions or restraints, and the niyamas are ethical observances. So these are sort of the foundation for your practice. So just to put it into perspective, like in the yamas, we have non-violence, don't say unkind things to yourself or to others, harming no other living being, truthfulness, non-stealing, giving credit to others where it's due, moderation in all things, also known as brahmacharya, but in this instant, as those of us who are householders in the world, is to be moderate in things, don't overdo, underdo, and non-possessiveness or non-hoarding of things, so to be generous. And so those are the yamas. And then moving into the niyamas, the observances, cleanliness, so cleansing of the body, cleanliness of the mind, purity is cleanliness. So then contentment, santosha is contentment. And when we talked about pratipaksha bhavana, I believe in episode 3, we began to understand to shift into a positive attitude, and that will really help you to practice contentment. Tapas or self-discipline, to put some, establish some discipline in accomplishing things you want to do. Self-study, not only of your inner self, of who am I really, but also study of the wisdom in these ancient yoga texts, because it's very enlightening, to say the least, and can really help you propel forward on your spiritual path, no matter what your faith or practice is spiritually. And then surrendering to the divine. Sometimes we just have to put up the white flag and say, this is not my battle. I need to surrender, and what am I supposed to learn from this situation that I'm in? So these are the yamas and niyamas. And then the 3rd limb is asana, the practice of getting the body moving into different yoga poses. The purpose really is to prepare the body for the inner practices of yoga, meditation, and samadhi, the ultimate enlightenment, let's say. But if your body isn't healthy and well and balanced, then it's really hard to sit for the inner quiet practices. So asanas will help to increase circulation, keep the spine flexible, spacious in the limbs, etc. So that's our purpose really of asana there. And that's not all yoga. Asana is just one of the practices of yoga. Then we move into pranayama, and prana is the life force and yama is the control of that. So as we said, the original yamas is, restraint. So it's the restraining or controlling of the life force. So when we are born, the life force comes into us and it gives us all movement through this lifetime. When we die, the prana or the life force leaves us. And so then we no longer have any movement. We become a corpse. So pranayama is the control of the life force. And this is accomplished through various breathing techniques, movement of the breath, because the prana rides on the breath. And there's a number of different techniques in my book, Letters from the Yoga Masters. So pranayama is it's just so amazing to really utilize our lung capacity so that we can have fresh oxygen to displace the CO2 and flush the body of toxins and move the life force throughout us in the most healthiest, efficient way. Then Pratyahara now is what I consider a bridge from the outer practices of Yama, Niyama, Asana, and Pranayama to the inner practices of Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. And those inner practices or outer practices are concentration, meditation, and enlightenment. So for some, Pratyahara, this is withdrawal from the senses. So when we talked about the mind in the earlier episodes, episode number 2 of this, I believe, the senses draw us outward. So the things we taste, the things we hear, the things we touch, they're drawing our focus outward. And the practice of Pratyahara draws us inward, away from the senses. So withdrawal from the senses to go inward. And one of the easiest ways to get a taste of Pratyahara is at the end of your yoga asana class, your teacher lies you down in Shavasana for yoga nidra, yoga sleep, and they talk you through this relaxation. Relax the toes, relax the feet, relax the legs, relax all the way up the body, eventually relaxing the mind. And at some point, you don't feel the room temperature, you don't feel your body laying on the mat, you don't hear the teacher anymore, but you know you're not asleep. When it's successful, you don't fall asleep. And this is a state of pratyahara, withdrawal from the senses, withdrawing from seeing, hearing, touching, etc., feeling the temperature. And so that's a beautiful example of it, but you can accomplish this in a state of meditation. And it just really takes you to that beautiful inner quiet. That's what our goal is, to go into this beautiful inner quiet. It's very restorative, very healing. So that's why I look at Pratyahara as a bridge from those outer stages, asana, pranayama, yamas, and niyamas, to the inner stages of yoga, concentration, meditation, and enlightenment. So after Pratyahara comes concentration, dharana. And concentration can be focusing on a candle flame or a sacred symbol like the Om symbol, or a mandala, a yantra, a sacred symbol of a chakra. And you try to focus on it. The classical way is called trataka. And you're trying not to blink the eyes as you focus on the candle flame or whatever. And because when you blink your eyes, you can have more thoughts. So the more steady you are, steady posture, steady eyes, then your thoughts are lesser and lesser, and you're concentrated on what it is you are focused on. So that's concentration. And then there's meditation. And meditation is often done on a mantra, for example. So the sacred words, it could be on, one of the Psalms, be still and know that I am God, or a sacred mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, or whatever you're initiated in. But it can even just be on your breath, right? Observing the breath. And when your mind wanders away, you bring it back. You bring it back. So it's a simple, it's effortless effort. So you sit and you are hearing the mantra or the sacred phrase, or watching your breath. And as the mind wanders away, you gently bring it back. Oh yeah, right. I was focusing on my in-breath and my out-breath. And not controlling it, not directing it, simply observing it. So you become the observer, and your thought waves become like subtitles on a foreign film, right? They come and they go. You let them go. They come and you let them go. You don't daydream on them. You just notice, oh, there was a thought. In breath, out breath. Oh, there's another thought. And so this is the process of dipping in gradually into a meditative state. And then enlightenment is samadhi, nirvana, bliss. And we get moments of enlightenment, moments of complete stillness where there's timelessness and we feel relaxed and calm. And so different stages of samadhi. Momentary samadhi is worth something. Moments of bliss, moments of complete harmony and balance. So these are our 8 limbs of yoga as described in my book on page 29. And there's different conversations about these 8 limbs of yoga. The whole book focuses on practices in the 8 limbs of yoga throughout it. But think about that. So when you use the word yoga, which actually means union with your source, returning to the source, your creator, the divine, God, whatever your pathway calls it. These are methods of that union. And so asana is not yoga, it's a part of yoga. And there are 8 limbs that we are practicing at any given time. Just practicing being an ethical human being, an honest, kind-hearted human being. Treating the body as the temple for your soul. That's cleanliness and nonviolence at the same time. And developing these things, the practice of your breathing techniques, the practice of focusing the mind. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. These are all practices of yoga. Withdrawal from the senses is very healing, very powerful, very restful. And so I hope on your yoga journey, the 8 limbs of yoga, which is called Ashtanga Yoga. Ashta is 8 and Anga is limbs. Ashtanga Yoga, not the yoga of Patabi Joyce, but these 8 limbs of yoga from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, but it's in many other pathways as well. I hope that you'll investigate more beyond the yoga asana on your mat. So hoping you have a beautiful day. I'm Mugs McConnell from South Okanagan Yoga Academy, and I hope you truly enjoyed this 8 limbs of yoga and session on snippets of yoga philosophy.